Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing. Almost forgot who I was. Today we're going to be doing Watercolor 101 episode 1. In this episode we're going to be talking a little bit about the personality of watercolor. We're going to be talking about a little bit of color theory in terms of what I call friends, foes, and acquaintances in colors and color mixing, color relationship. So within those two topics, there's going to be a lot of stuff. So I hope that you'll hold on and let me do a couple of videos where we kind of get you the basic knowledge of how watercolor behaves, why it behaves the way that it does, and then we'll get into doing some color mixing, blending, gradients. We'll do some pen and ink work, as I mentioned in a previous video. I am not an expert by any means. I do not teach watercolor. I just really enjoy it. I've been doing it for about 6 or 7 years, maybe a little bit longer than that. And my skills have improved by just playing around and not taking myself too seriously. So it's Tuesday morning, January the 16th. We have no school again today because we have a severe winter storm coming through again in our region. So I haven't lost power yet, so I'm going to take advantage of the time that I have. So while we're chatting a little bit, and I'm going to show you some stuff, I'm going to go ahead and take my palette, because we're going to do a little bit of play here just so I can show you a little bit about how watercolor works. Now these paints, I will preface by saying these are actual artist grade paints. In future videos I'll be showing you some student grade paints so that you can kind of see how they're different. Now depending on what you're using your watercolor paints for will highly determine which paints you prefer. So I prefer an artist grade when I'm doing a painting versus if I'm just playing around and I'm applying it in junk journaling, or I'm doing cards, even watercolor cards. I won't necessarily use my artist grade. So we'll be talking about that again in a future video. But the first thing you want to do anytime you're working with a palette is go ahead and spritz it with water just to get those paints to start activating. So I'm just going to give a little bit of squirt there to all those colors. I don't know what we're going to be using, so we will just get them all going. So I also have my water pot. It's a split Meeden ceramic water pot, divided water pot. So I'm just going to set the palette on there for now so I can show you something else. I think I sprayed my table, so let me wipe that off. But I want to show you some of my paintings, and I'm going to I'm mixing them up because I want you to see. I'm going to tell you where I feel I have improved. Okay, this is I didn't date this one, which I usually do, and I did this painting several years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and it was terrible. Like, I can't even find it in my bag. It was probably that terrible. But this is a 100% improved process, because if you'll see how I was able to do all the shadows in this rose, absolutely beautiful. This was a tutorial by Lindsay Wyrick over at the Frugal Crafter. And again, it's been years since I even did this one. It's been quite a while, a couple years at least. But you can see where I've got my blends and I've got good color in the leaves. I could do with a little bit more contrast in my leaves, but I'm still learning here a little bit. This is another one I did where I played around a lot with blending some colors. So like here, I didn't use a mixed purple. I actually used pink and quinacridone rose, I believe, and a blue, excuse me, and I got these shades. So that's another one. I loved how the leaves turned out in this one. And then this was just some watercolor play. So we will probably do this with on the channel. So I'll have to remind myself how I got that gold. It might have been a gold paint. I can't quite remember. It's just a little swatch. And this was a tulip. I think I painted this on a whole background and I didn't like the background, so I just cut it out. And we're going to be doing some of this play. So I'm going to leave this one out because this is a great way to play around with what we're talking about today, which is the personality of watercolor. So you basically paint your rose shape with water, and then you drop the paint in. And so I'm going to set that one aside, and then what you get is this incredible bleed. I just love this bleed. when I'm creating a more free-flowing, loose watercolor. So I'm going to set that aside. This is another one I did quite a while ago. I didn't really care for the background, but again, practicing, just practicing the different elements, the different tones, and how dark and light different colors are. And this is one of my favorites. This was done in March of 2020, and I just thought this one turned out really, really great. As I mentioned before, I didn't do anything in the center of that flower. I love to leave white speckles on my paintings. I just like the magical look of that. This is another one I did in March of 2020. So this would have I probably did a lot back then because I wasn't doing junk journaling. I don't think I started junk journaling until 21, maybe. This is another beautiful one. I love how this turned out. Lots and lots of colors in that. And then this is a stamped image. So we'll be doing some work with stamped images as well, because then you can get out, if you've got any floral stamps or something that you can play around with, you can play along with me. Hopefully, as we move through the series, I'll be able to actually create my own drawing, get that over to you guys. We'll do a paint with me and we'll do the same design together, but I need a little bit of time to do that. So anyway, that's just some watercolor play with a stamped image. And then this was another one that was pretty wild and crazy. Look at her. I love it though. Love it, love it. And then this was done in May of 2020. Oh, I really like that one. That's beautiful. And then a rose. This was also May of 2020. So you can see how I had gotten sidetracked a little bit by going into the journal making world, but this is another favorite, really showing you how you can blend out those colors. This is going to be a good example when we do that tutorial, so I'm going to set that one aside as well. That was really good blending. And then another one, and then there's our rose. So there's more, but that's all I'm going to show you today. So let's talk about the personality of watercolor. So watercolor, sorry, let me back up a quick second. This is the Hippie Crafter paper. I mentioned that I was going to use it. Sorry about the focus. I was going to use it primarily in the tutorial part of this watercolor series, unless I'm going to show you how to use, what the differences in paper are. Then I'll pull in some other stuff. Like this right here is a stamped image, and this is on Arches paper. So it's really, really textural. It's really robust. The Hippie Crafter is really thick paper too. I mean, it's cardstock heavy. It's nice. But we're going to be doing some work on this just to show you how the watercolor behaves. But I might show you a little bit with this today as well. But I'm going to set that aside. So let me give you some facts and then we'll play a little bit. So the personality of watercolor is all in the fact that watercolor is the relationship between the paper, water, and the pigment. And so watercolor will only go where there is water. Now you can paint wet paint on a dry surface, which I'll show you how to do that. But it's not going to travel outside of the paint that you've put down. It's going to stay confined. Boy, that's driving me crazy. There we go. Will that help? No. Well, we're talking. Black pen. Okay. It's only going to travel where there's water. Otherwise, it's just going to sit in one place, which is the... boy, that's just not staying focused. So that is the beauty of watercolor. It is both persnickety and magical. So it's one of those mediums that if you take it too seriously, it can be very, very frustrating. But if you kind of stay in your mind in this place of playfulness and let yourself be captured by the magical elements of watercolor, you will love it. And that being said, you don't have to start out with artist grade. You can play around with Crayola paints. You can play around with, I might even pick some up. I don't currently have any, but the idea is to play, see what you think, see what you like, see if it fits you. Don't go spend a bunch of money, buy a bunch of stuff if you don't know you're going to like watercolor. Some people, it frustrates them a bunch. Now, it frustrated me a lot in the beginning, but I loved it so much that my love for it outweighed my frustration over how it behaved. So again, it only travels where there is water. And then we're going to talk about some effects that we get on paper when we use wet on dry. What happens when your paint and water starts to dry, but you add more water or more paint, you get these hard lines and what they call blooms or cauliflowers or water spots. So sometimes those are they work fine in a painting, and other times they're not preferred. They kind of can mess up a painting. So we're going to talk about that as well. But I want to talk about color theory, and I said I was going to grab my chart, and then I didn't. Grab it. Just a second. It's just hanging on my door. And now on the floor. Boy, oh boy. So this is my very well loved color wheel. So this is the way I come to understand color theory a little bit. So colors that are close to each other on the color wheel, I call them friends. They are color friends. So all the reds into the yellows are all color friends, okay? That means they play well together, they like each other, they like to hang out, they don't argue, they're just cool, they're copacetic, right? Now, then you have foes, which are, and the friends and acquaintances are, I'm going to talk to you about the differences in that concept for me in a minute. But your foes are the colors that are opposite on the color wheel. So if you look here at red and you go completely opposite of green, these are foes if you try to mix them together. So red and green are going to make an ugly color. Orange and blue are going to make an ugly color. Yellow and purple are going to make an ugly color. Now, sometimes you want that. You want a brown or you want some kind of a dark tone. But as a rule, sorry, that clanging. As a rule, they don't, you have to be very careful with how you use them. Now, and I'm backing up a second here because I lost my train of thought, but the acquaintance idea is that in a painting, I don't think I have one here that I can really demonstrate, but in a painting, if you use, let's say, purple and yellow in the same painting, but you're not mixing them, they're going to complement each other. So I call those acquaintances. They get along, they know each other, they like to be in the same place, but they're not super personal, and they're not all chummy, they're just kind of hanging out, and they're there, and they complement one another. One of my favorite complementary blends is purple and yellow. They're all beautiful. They're all blue and orange are very, very complementary to one another. So in real artist talk, they're called complementary colors. And I don't get into all that super important language. I take the concepts and I make them understandable to me. So the friends, foes, and acquaintances make sense to me. So red and orange, these red and orange, they are good friends. They are good friends. The more distant they get on the color wheel, they're just a little bit, they're not as close, right? Doesn't mean they can't play well together. It doesn't mean they don't work well together, but they're not like super, they're not besties, they're not besties. But, so yeah, that's a little bit on color theory, friends, foes, and acquaintances. So we're going to talk or play a little bit here with some watercolor here, and I want to show you what I mean by that the paint is only going to go where there's water. So in another episode, we'll be talking about brushes, paper, paint, tubes versus pans, artist grade versus student grade, synthetic brushes like this one versus a natural hairbrush. I don't purchase natural hairbrushes. I do have a few because they came in watercolor sets, but you don't need an actual animal hair brush. These synthetics work really good. This is one of my favorite brushes. It's a number 8 round Mimic Creative Mark. Very affordable as well. So, so we've got our paper, and what I want to show you is I'm going to bring my water bucket. Sorry, I've never done this before, so I apologize if it's a little bit rough around the edges. I'm going to bring my water pot right here. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. All right, and then I'm going to put this way so we can try to get everything in view. And I like to turn my palette this way, so I've got my bigger mixing area right here. Not that we're going to do a ton of mixing today, but I thought I would show you. So let's go ahead and pick up a little bit of paint. So the idea of I didn't even talk about the water. You want a separate container for your clean water and your dirty water. So if I go in with yellow and I'm done with yellow, I want to rinse off all that paint in my dirty water bucket, and then once this is dirty, it's your dirty bucket, okay? Oops, I didn't mean to put that on my paper. Not a big deal. So sometimes I get a little careless and I end up having to switch my water out mid-project, but it works really well for a good period of time. So that's what I'm missing, my paper towels. That's why I tried to dab off on my paper. I'm just going to put this piece of paper towel here, move that up a little bit. Forgive the rough edges here. I'm not a watercolor teacher, but I am going to share my knowledge. So let's go in with, I'm going to mix up a little bit of color, and I don't have my color chart in front of me. I haven't swatched this palette out on this card yet, so I'm just going to hold this up here so I can see which color I want to try for you. I think we'll do the quinacridone rose. So you're not going to be able to see it because it's off camera, but I'm going to grab this. It's kind of a pinky rose. Okay, and I'm just going to put some in my palette, like so. And I'm going to rinse off in my dirty water. So now that is my dirty water bucket. You don't want to ever tap into that to get clean water. And I use it to rinse my brush a couple of times. And I like to have a towel in my hand as well to get that brush really clean. So let me show you. Let's just try this idea. I haven't done this in a while, so we'll see how it works. But basically, I can paint a water rose. I can paint the shape of a rose, which is basically just C curve shapes. So I'm going to start here in the center, and I'm just going to do some water, and you'll be able to see it in a second. You really don't want to take your eyes off your paper though, because you can't see the water, right? I can see a little bit of a pink tint here, but I'm just going to go a little bit wider and a little bit wider, and then we're going to drop that paint in. So another thing we'll talk about in another video is the paint to water ratio. So I want this first bit to be pretty bold and very heavy in tone. So I'm going to dip right back into the palette, and I'm going to just drop this paint right in the center. And I'm just going to kind of tap, just really easy tap. Okay, so see how it's only going where the water is? Oh, this is the magic of watercolor, you guys. I just love it. So see, now this hard line here is because there's really no water there, which is fine because we're getting a little bit of a shape there, which is important too. So love it. So let's rinse off our brush, and I'm going to tap in this area and see if I can get some of that paint to move. See how it's moving? Because I'm teasing it with a little bit of water where we didn't actually have water. So I'm just kind of getting some of that other paint to activate. The other thing you can do when you're playing is play around also with pulling out some of this color beyond the paint boundary. So I'm going to just touch that. So see how we're getting that bleed? We're getting that paint to move. Look at that. Okay, so we're gonna, oh, we need a little bit more in the middle because I feel like there's too much white. So I'm just gonna tap, tap and get a little bit more color in the center. And you can also go in with a little bit more paint and just kind of dab that here and there if you want a little bit more dark flowing paint. Just like that. Oh my goodness, I love watercolor so much. I find it very relaxing these days, so if I get really stressed out, I can go to watercolor and I can make myself feel pretty happy. Okay, so now while all that paint is wet around this water-shaped rose, I'm going to mix up some green and some yellow, and we're going to pull in some leaves. So I'm going to go in with my, let's do a yellow. Let's do cad yellow light. We don't need much because this is just play, and I want to keep these videos kind of short. Okay, so we got yellow, and then we're going to get some green. I'm going to use my mixed green, which is my sap green, which I actually talked a lot about in the video that I lost when I did that paper review, the second part. So bummed about that, but anyway, we'll talk about that too. We'll talk about how I choose my colors for my palette. And I like to have convenience colors and a lot of colors, but we'll talk about pigments and talk about mixed pigments and how that changes the quality or the vibrancy or transparency sometimes of what you're using. So we're going to go ahead and drop a little bit of yellow. Oh, you know what? We want to make we want to make some leaf shapes first. Sorry. So see how my water in this bucket is still clean? That's because I'm not dipping in. I do want a little bit on my brush for this process. So I'm going to just go like this, and I'm going to make a leaf shape. That's really wet. Really wet. That's going to be really strange. Really strange. But let's just drop some yellow in there, see what happens. That's not what I expected. Again, it's been a long time since I've done this, so I'm going to drop some sap green in there as well, see what we get. It's still fun. You know, even when it doesn't turn out the way you think it should, but see how it's bleeding into the flower? It's really pretty. That actually turned out pretty good. Again, not what I had in mind, but I think you get the point. So let's do another one. So maybe we need to pick up a spot that's not quite so wet. So let's see if we can look at the edge here. I think this edge is a little bit drier. So let's go ahead and go in with some water again. So we get a little bit less of that pink pulling out. That's still quite a bit, but we're going to deal with it. It's still traveling. So see how it will only go where there's water. Otherwise, it will stay within its boundaries. It took a boundaries class, apparently. So again, we're dipping in there, and we're going to get some blend there. Get a little bit of green. I'm going to go in a little bit heavier with the green this time. And you can see how I'm holding my brush. I'm pretty loose, kind of holding it, just not really committed to any particular movement, just dropping in the paint and getting the bleed there. Oh, that's so beautiful. I actually like this. Oh, I love it. Now we can come in with more later, but you want to be careful. We'll be talking about this in a future video. You want to be careful about, what's the word I'm looking for? I can't even find my words. I think I just lost my train of thought there. Oh, I just dipped into that water. It's still pretty clean, but it's getting a little bit tinted. So I'm going to do, usually I do leaves in odd numbers, so 3 or 5 or something. So let's just continue. Let's make another shape here. Can't figure out what's buzzing in my house. almost sounds like a telephone, but it's going weird. Okay, so we're going to drop some green in there too. Oh, this is so beautiful. It's not bleeding into the flower as much as I expected, but we did pick a drier side on purpose. I'm going to have to see what that noise is. We didn't get any pink in this one, which is kind of cool. We're just playing, we're not making a masterpiece here. So you can see how that dark is staying there, and that's because it's not hitting as much wet paint. I'm going to try to drop in a little bit of pink. Now you have to be careful of this because the order of your colors also matters. Oh, that's really pretty. In that you'll get mud or one of those yucky colors if you get colors touching that don't play well together. So that looks pretty cool. I think we're going to call that good. But yeah, that's how that works basically. So I want to show you another couple of just simple shapes here as well, just to accentuate that that principle. But I'm going to get up for a second. Pardon me. I want to see what that noise is. It's so strange because there's no my husband's at work, so his cell phones are not here, but it almost sounds like a cell phone. My cell phone's sitting here with the sound off. I have no idea. Mystery. We are almost done, guys. So we're going to do just a couple more simple shapes just to show you the effect here. So let's do a heart. And this might give me an opportunity to show you the theory about the hard lines a little bit as an intro. So because I can't see my water line, I don't know how good of a shape we're going to get. But that's okay. We're going to get the essence of the shape. You could lightly pencil it in if you wanted to. So there's our shape, even though you cannot see it. Let's just go ahead and go in with this quinacridone rose. I'm just going to drop it in here. Hopefully I get it in the heart. So see how that's happening? Now we're going to be able to see the shape of our heart if I'm very, very careful, because I am being very careful about that edge. Okay, so now if I tap, we're going to start bumping into that edge. See, I think we're getting into dry paper there because it's not really moving. Okay. We didn't get a lot of water in the middle, apparently. We drop it a little bit in. So the risk of dropping water into wet paint is you'll get what we call blooms or cauliflowers or water spots, whatever you want to call it. So now if I drop more color in here, let's see if we can create some hard lines. See how we're getting some hard lines now around that edge because we're actually, the paint is drying, but we're also getting hard lines because we are touching the dry paper. So yeah, that's it. That is it. So that is just our first lesson in a little bit of Watercolor 101 color theory type of thing. And I'm trying to figure out if I should use this for my picture for the video. It's kind of weird, but or maybe not. I don't know. I don't know. I might have the picture be the same in every video for the the Watercolor 101. So anyway, that is episode number 1. I hope that it was helpful. I hope that you'll stick around and keep following along as we play and experiment together. As I do more and more, I will become reacquainted again with my love for watercolor as well as my knowledge that's kind of packed away. I do want to show you something here before I let you go. So see here how we're getting a little bit of a dark there. So that's where we're getting a brown because that pink quinacridone rose is mixing with the green and it's creating that brown, which is sometimes what you really, really want. So the other is kind of weird, but so this is still wet. You can see the shine. Oh, another fact share is that when you're working on a painting, you don't want to really touch your fingertips to your painting, because you'll leave oils and things on your painting that can affect the paper before it's been being used, or your painting after. So if you want to test and see if something is wet or dry, you can touch it with the back of your hand, and if it feels cool to the touch or obviously wet, you know. So that is still very, very wet. I'm going to try it over here. That's still cool to the touch, but it's not leaving paint on my I'm not touching it, I'm just pointing on my hand. So that's a way to tell how dry. You can also, if you're wanting to move along to the next layer, which we'll come back to in another video, you can use your heat tool. The other fun fact about watercolor, before I let you go, is that it always dries lighter than it is right now. So as this dries, all of those colors are going to get lighter. Okay, not by a ton, but there's definitely a color shift, a light shift. So you have to account for that when you're going in and you're like, for instance, on this one painting that I said was really one I'm really proud of. Even though I got a lot of kind of muddy color, I think, down here, almost a brown. What was I going to say? Ugh. Old brain, you guys. It frustrates me. I don't know what I was going to say. So I will let you go. Maybe I'll use this one as my photo for the video. I'm not sure. So anyway, guys, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.